Welcome to my presentation on visual and digital literacies through fake news. My name is Dr. Leslie Farmer, and I am a professor at California State University in Long Beach, where I coordinate the teacher librarian program. So what is fake news? We're talking about deliberate, published disinformation, hoax, we used to call them lies, that are purported to be real news. That is, the creator knows that the information isn't true, but they are hoping that you believe that it is. Know that satire really isn't considered fake news because people are supposed to know that it's fake. Images could be just badly cropped, but they could also be misleading intentionally. So when we talk about visual and digital literacy, we're looking at aspects of information literacy. And then when you drill down, these overlap media literacy, drill down even more, news literacy, and then specifically fake news as kind of the hot spot in our discussion today, and also as a gateway to visual and digital literacy. So let's take a moment and look at media literacy, because this is a really good lens in which to think about, fake news and being able to discern, who the audience is, why is this message being, created, who is, creating that information, what is their worldview, what message do they have, and then how does the format itself impact that message. So know that misinformation has been going on for a long time. This is a really good website to look at some of the history. But we also know that with the internet, with social media, that more than ever, that misinformation, that disinformation then can really spread globally and have a real impact in an almost immediate time frame. And we've thinking about, what are the consequences of fake news these days, with COVID, with vaccination issues, people get frightened, they withdraw, they make bad decisions, they act on those poor decisions. And, just in general, there tends to be a polarization. So it's really important then to be digitally literate and visually literate in order to be able to discern, the accuracy of information. So if you're teaching, about visual and digital literacy and using fake news as the construct, this is kind of like the bare bones, is helping people to understand, like, what's fake news? What's the big deal about it? What are its consequences? Giving examples of it, talking about what are reputable news sources, and being a fact checker. So this is a real easy, it's very applicable for all ages. This is actually something that I've created. The idea is that you're looking through, the whole news item, including, who the producer is, who the disseminators, where do the pictures come from, and that's where you're looking up, you're tracing the source, because oftentimes disinformation is pulled from other sources, recontextualized, cropped, edited in such a way that it is disinformation. Looking across, we sometimes call this lateral reading, so looking at other sources to see what they say about the same issue, and then looking inside, what are our own biases that we have that impact how we respond to news. So here, take a moment, look at these two images and figure out, which one's true. And in effect, now that I'm pausing, both are actually true. When they say that that's a shark on the top, though, no, it's actually a dolphin, and it has to do with the angle. So you might want to do a little research to find out, why people think that the bottom one is false. Oftentimes they'll say it's because of the flag being straight out, but the reason for that is that the astronauts actually put a pole in there, so it would be at right angles. So being able then to look at different images, and there's a number of sites out there that are good quizzes for your students to kind of figure out what's true, what's false, and why it's misleading. So again, when we're thinking about visualization, you should also think about, data. So here on the bottom, the trees are misleading. Can you think up why? And pause for a second. It's because you're seeing two dimensions, not just the height, but also the width. So it misleads the person as to the difference in the quantity. So that's just one example. I'll show you another one. But again, when we're talking about data, you need to figure out, what's the source of it? Its population, is the sample representative, is the methodology for analyzing the data, accurate, and is it represented accurately? That's where the visual comes in. And so as a result, then the analysis and the interpretation might be misleading. And then we also sometimes think that just because two things coexist, that one causes the other, and that's sort of hard to prove. So take a moment. Why is this misleading? And in this case, it's because we don't have any legend on the y-axis. And so we're not actually seeing from the very bottom. If you were to, the bottom is supposed to be 0, right? And so this is very misleading. How about digital literacy? Again, fake news is a good way to really hone your digital literacy skills. So again, how you search for information, what are the results? Sometimes you'll get a confirmation bubble or a filter so that you don't see some of the information, especially if you use some of the social media tools. Are the images being manipulated? Are they being edited to mislead? More and more, we're seeing the use of bots, aren't we? And how does that impact the message? And again, can you trace the source? So again, things like Chat GPT do not say where they got their information, and you really have to dig around in order to find out the source for it. Here's an example where we are looking at both digital literacy and visual literacy. And you can see that this particular article from BBC shows how images can be misleading. They can be, changed. And so the more that you can look at photo editing software and use it, and dig down to the pixel level, or look at what they call different layers, you can see how images can be transposed and manipulated. So that's a really good exercise for students. This particular example of visual literacy and also digital literacy shows kind of an image that's highly pixelated, and then a search engine is basically looking for the most appropriate image that's in higher resolution. And because a lot of the information, for kind of sourcing images is based on, prior images, in this case, we're seeing that, the default is the white person, because there tend to be historically more images of white folks than African-American folks. On the left, the original is a highly pixelated picture of Obama. So this website right here kind of helps students to look at how algorithms can mislead the person and send them to the wrong space. Another aspect that's important that I mentioned is finding reputable sources. So this is a chart that kind of like looks at media bias in terms of, how objective is the reporting, and how much editing or opinion making is part of it, as well as, does the the journal, the magazine, the periodical tend to be more, left wing or right wing. Again, this is, one person's, opinion. So it'd be really interesting to have, your students look at these different articles, these different journals, and find out, what their stance is. They can be very influential, and you can do this for, very specific topics. This tends to be more the general news ones, but we know that there's news that's contained in scientific journals or periodicals, specialized, areas such as, sports news, etc. So, or Catholic publications, religious ones. So again, this is another opportunity for students to really engage in critical content analysis. So here are some, good fake news learning activities to start with. I've provided you with an overall video, things about, taking two news items and one that's fake and figuring out which one is, the actual fake one, and be able to say why. That the question of why is so important. Being able, again, to use, image editing tools to be able to kind of suss out fake images, actually tracing where the text is and where the images are, from which they might see in news, and to drill back on that. Understand that, there are legitimate ones, API, AP, UPI are news aggregators, and they actually will be used by a lot of local newspapers. So again, even accurate news can be sourced from elsewhere. So again, that's something for students to learn. They could also, create their own kind of, fake news and see if other people can believe it. Having them doing, fact checking, having them look at materials from the past that are misinformation, disinformation, like that hoaxes site. You'll also see some great things in the Library of Congress, American Memory collections, which are digitized. And again, having students, engage in this by, breeding fake news. So, they might be looking at the National Enquirer, they might be looking at something from social media, and then having a class discussion about that. So, jot down some couple of ideas. So you could pause this video to think about that. Know that I've created a website, Fake News LibGuide, and that includes, background information, why we believe in fake news, and then, some tools that are to help discern fake news. In here, I've got a special section just on different literacies. So that's where you're going to see, digital literacy and visual literacy, different activities, different good sources for students, to read, including videos. This section also on civic engagement, how we can respond and counteract fake news. There's a section just in curriculum. And of course, the library's role is important. I also coordinate the ICT literacy community for Merlot, which is a repository of over 100,000 educational resources. And I have created a number of bookmarks that look at specific issues in terms of ICT literacy. And one of them, a couple of them have to do with fake news. So whether it's media and visual literacy or research skills or ethical issues that have to do, with fake news and information literacy, you'll find a lot of possible sources to help you out on that. So the truth is out there. So spread the news and spread the literate news.